Welcome to the fourth video in my Jujutsu Kaisen arc analysis series, and in this video we're going over the Kyoto Goodwill Event arc. Up until now, this is the longest story arc that we have covered. It involves our protagonist Yuji making his return after going through extensive training with Gojo. After being reacquainted with the students of Tokyo Jujutsu High, we are thrown straight into the Kyoto Goodwill Event. So much happens within this story arc. We have the battle between the two schools, as well as a sinister plot that has been hatched behind everybody's backs, which involves the second and third years of Kyoto Jujutsu High, as they've been ordered to kill Yuji during the team battle portion of the Kyoto Goodwill Event. In addition to this fierce competition that is taking place between these two schools, the Goodwill Event is invaded by one of the antagonists of the story. So in this video, my aim is to go through the key moments of this story arc, talking about some of the new characters that are introduced, as well as going over the key battles that take place during this arc, and wrapping up by speaking about the impact that this arc has on future storylines and the entirety of Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole. So my besto friendo, without further delay, let's get into the analysis of the Kyoto Goodwill Event arc. The Kyoto Goodwill Event arc takes place between chapters 32 to 54 and is adapted into episodes 14 to 21 of the anime. Its storyline revolves around the 30th annual Kyoto Sister School Goodwill Event. This annual event sees the two schools pitted against each other in a series of intensive jujutsu battles. The majority of this arc is focused upon the team battle portion of this event. It is safe to say that this arc is split up into two key portions, the first being the team battles that take place between the two schools, which occur between chapters 32 to 42, and the second half of this arc focusing on when the antagonists invade the Goodwill Event. During the first half of this arc, we see several students facing off against each other in one-to-one battles, while the second half sees the students of Tokyo and Kyoto Jujutsu High working together in order to battle against the cursed spirit Hanami. The fallout after the versus Mahito arc involves Mahito telling his comrades that he has developed a rivalry with the vessel of Sukuna. As well as this, Gojo learns about everything that had happened during this arc from Nanami, and he assumes that having Yuji take part in the Goodwill Event will be a nice way to cheer him up. In chapter 32, Gojo surprises everybody by revealing that Yuji is still alive. While the two of them had assumed that this would be a pleasant surprise for everybody, Megumi and Nobara instead react by being horrified, because they had genuinely thought that Yuji was dead. However, nobody is more surprised about Yuji being alive than the principal of Kyoto Jujutsu High. So while the Tokyo team regroup and rethink Yuji into their game plan, on the other hand, the Kyoto students are ordered to kill Yuji. Everybody seems to be in agreement with this plan aside from the powerful Aoi Todo, who disagrees with the principal's plans to assassinate Yuji. When the team battles begin, Todo goes after the Tokyo team, and Yuji is tasked with fending him off, as Megumi had mentioned earlier that Yuji's involvement will be essential to their strategy, especially in a hand-to-hand combat situation. So while the Kyoto and Tokyo students begin their search for the targeted Grade 2 cursed spirit, Yuji and Aoi Todo begin their battle, with Todo completely overwhelming Yuji. This cements the fact that he has incredible skill and power. Yuji, however, is able to endure Todo's attacks. Thus impressing him, he goes on to question Yuji about his taste in women. When it is revealed that Yuji has a similar taste in women to Todo, he quickly begins to generate false memories within his mind. Memories where the two of them are best friends and they had attended the same middle school, thus starting Todo's fascination with Yuji as his besto friendo. The two of them are eventually interrupted when students from the Kyoto school begin to ambush Yuji. However, Todo utilizes his curse techniques in order to ruin his teammates' plans to kill Yuji. His intervention results in the Kyoto students retreating, as he effectively ends up saving Yuji. As these students begin to be split up, from chapter 35, the one-to-one battles between the groups begin, as Megumi faces off against Noritoshi and Maki faces off against Kazumi. The two of them question Kazumi and Noritoshi whether if the Kyoto team is trying to kill Yuji. While this is going on, Nobara ends up facing off against Momo, while the two cursed corpses Panda and Mkhimaru battle against each other. In chapter 36, while the Kyoto and Tokyo students are beginning their battles, Todo expresses to Yuji that he is impressed with his raw strength and speed, but he feels that Yuji's jujutsu abilities are very unrefined. This leads to Todo challenging Yuji to grow stronger. His desire is completely in line with Yuji's desire to never accept being weak. While continuing their fight, Yuji begins to develop his abilities. He further advances thanks to the guidance of Todo, who ends up teaching him about the basics of cursed energy and how he can take advantage of it by allowing it to flow across his body. Yuji finds a mentor in Todo as he listens to his advice and decides to go down the path of the strongest. So the first solo battle that we'll talk about is the fight against Mkhimaru and Panda. During this battle, we learn that Mkhimaru is being controlled remotely by a terminally ill sorcerer, while contrastingly, Panda is a cursed corpse who was created by the principal of Tokyo Jujutsu High. Mkhimaru has a hatred for Panda because he is able to live carefree while he suffers on the other hand. While Mkhimaru tries his best and unleashes every one of his attacks against Panda, the second year Jujutsu High student is able to persist. Towards the end of the battle, when Mkhimaru utilizes his ultimate cannon, Panda is left with no choice but to activate his gorilla mode. This results in a switch occurring in his cursed energy core as he utilizes the strength of his brother. This grants Panda an incredible amount of strength, and through utilizing his gorilla mode, he is able to defeat Mkhimaru. At the end of the battle, Panda has no hard feelings against Mkhimaru, and he hopes to meet him again one day. In chapter 39, we catch up with Maki facing off against Kasumi, as the Kyoto student learns that Maki's grade 4 sorcerer ranking does not reflect her abilities at all. Maki is able to overpower her opponent and ends up taking her cursed tool. Meanwhile, Nobara begins her battle with the airborne Momo. While in the air, Momo is completely out of range from Nobara's attacks, but however, thanks to Nobara's straw doll technique, she gains the upper hand, as it results in the Kyoto student falling to the ground. Nobara is about to defeat Momo until she is interrupted by the arrival of Mai, who fires a rubber bullet to Nobara's head. Mai is too interrupted by the arrival of her sister Maki. The twin sisters begin their battle against each other in chapter 42, as we get to understand the complex dynamic that exists between the two of them, including their traumatic childhoods, how they'd stuck by each other, and eventually how the two of them had grown distant, leading up to their encounter during the Goodwill event, where we see that Mai has developed a hatred for her sister Maki. A distance between the two sisters was formed after Maki had promised to never leave her sister's side, since the two of them had been treated wrongfully by the Zenin family during their childhood. But despite their shared trauma that they had experienced, Maki had eventually left her sister in order to explore her own desires. After being left alone, Mai was left with no choice but to become stronger also, Maki being born with talent for being a Jujutsu sorcerer, while on the other hand, Mai, who did have cursed energy, had no desire to grow stronger. She did not have anything to prove, as she was born with cursed energy while Maki wasn't. But after being left with nobody to be there for her, Mai was robbed of the opportunity to live a noble life, as she started to pursue her own path of becoming a Jujutsu sorcerer. During this time, Mai had started to resent Maki, even going as far as to hide her cursed techniques from her. But during this battle, we learned that Mai's abilities are nowhere near enough to face off against Maki. Mai is easily defeated by her sister and thus eliminated from the Goodwill event. This now leads us to the final one-to-one battle, which occurs between the Tokyo and Kyoto students, which is Megumi facing off against Noritoshi. The two of them have very differing ideologies, as Megumi establishes that he believes in serving everybody regardless of who they are, and that Megumi had left the Zenin family of his own will, and that he desires to act of his own accord instead of being their pawn. On the other hand, Noritoshi was raised as a possible heir to the Kamo family, and his entire life revolves around following the ideals of the Kamo family, so that he may one day be able to fulfill that role. And it is for this reason that he had worked together with the principal of Kyoto Jujutsu High in order to sneak a semi-grade 1 curse spirit into the battlefield. We learned that Noritoshi was supposed to use this semi-grade 1 curse spirit in order to kill Yuji, but instead, the second year of Tokyo Jujutsu High, Toge Inumaki, ends up encountering it. However, the curse spirit is quickly beheaded as the special grade curse spirit Hanami makes his appearance. Hanami's arrival is one part of a larger plan that is hatched by Mahito's group. This plan involves Mahito and the others invading Tokyo Jujutsu High. Along with Hanami, a cursed user called Juzu also arrives. He ends up casting a curtain over the battlefield. This curtain allows anybody to enter into the area apart from Satoru Gojo. The battle between Megumi and Noritoshi is interrupted by the arrival of Hanami, as Toge utilizes his cursed speech while Noritoshi makes use of his blood manipulation in order to fend off the special grade curse. Hanami knocks Noritoshi unconscious as Inumaki uses the last ounce of his strength to blast Hanami away. This attack buys enough time for Maki to join the fight, as she works together with Megumi to face off against Hanami. Megumi ends up summoning cursed tools from his shadows. As he passes Maki the special grade cursed tool Playful Cloud, the two of them work together and battle Hanami as they try to figure out his weakness, but the special grade curse proves to be too powerful, and not to mention his outer body being far too durable for them to land any attacks that will have any lasting damage on their opponent. Megumi's Jujutsu abilities are nullified by Hanami's cursed bud, which ends ends up growing from his stomach. As the situation seems hopeless for Maki, the two of them are helped by the arrival of Yuji and Todo. During this 2 vs 1 battle, Todo challenges Yuji by stating that he will not assist Yuji until he is able to successfully land an ability called Black Flash against his opponent. Black Flash is a phenomenon that occurs with Jujutsu sorcerers, which greatly amplifies their physical striking abilities. This happens when cursed energy is applied to an attack within 1/1,000,000th of a second. Yuji agrees to Todo's challenge and begins his fight with Hanami, but his first attempt at utilizing Black Flash fails due to Yuji's anger. But it is only after Todo slaps Yuji and helps him to regain his focus that Yuji is able to momentarily suppress his anger for now. After regaining his focus, Yuji rushes the special grade Curse Spirit. He strikes him within 1/1,000,000th of a second of applying his cursed energy, resulting in a Black Flash forming, which amplifies Yuji's striking power. After Yuji clears Todo's challenge, he is assisted by his newly formed mentor, senpai, and best friend. Thanks to the help of Todo, Yuji now has even more strength after having unlocked the power of Black Flash. Together, the two of them now pose as a plausible threat against Hanami. Unlike any of his prior battles, Hanami begins to really enjoy the thrill of the battle while he is fighting Yuji and Todo. This excitement ends up fueling his strength as he gains the upper hand against the two of them, and it is at that moment that Todo decides that if they have any fighting chance, then he needs to utilize his own curse technique. We learn that Todo's ability is called BOOGIE, and it allows him to switch places with anybody by clapping. By utilizing his curse technique, it results in Hanami having difficulty predicting where he will be attacked from. The two of them unleash a barrage of attacks against the special grade curse, as they swap positions with each other repeatedly. After having thoroughly analyzed Hanami's abilities, Todo is able to create openings for Yuji to land 4 consecutive Black Flash attacks, thanks to his application of his BOOGIE curse technique. But as the battle continues, Hanami starts to get accustomed to their fighting strategy. It is at this moment that Todo changes his approach by swapping Yuji out with the curse tool Playful Cloud, as it is revealed that Todo is able to switch the positions of anything as long as it contains cursed energy. Taking advantage of Hanami's confusion, Todo is able to successfully break through Hanami's hard shell, thanks to successfully landing an attack with the curse tool Playful Cloud. As a last resort, just before Hanami is about to activate his domain expansion, the curtain that was erected by the cursed user Juzu is dispelled, revealing that Gojo is floating above the battlefield. Gojo first takes out the cursed user Juzu. He leaves him alive for questioning, in order to find out what the motives of Mahito's group are. It is then that Hanami attempts to retreat, trying his best to avoid an encounter with Gojo, but it is too late as Gojo unleashes his ability Hollow Technique Purple. This is a limitless attack that is utilized by Gojo. It results in the formation of a purple orb, which is created by Gojo simultaneously activating 2 curse techniques, the first being Curse Technique Lapse Blue, and the second being Curse Technique Reversal Red. The combination of these 2 techniques results in the formation of a single purple sphere. This orb is able to destroy everything in its path, as it fuses together the diverging and converging properties of the Limitless. Without much effort, Gojo is able to easily bring the battle to an end, but it is at this moment that we learn the true motives behind Mahito's group, as Mahito was able to escape with several cursed objects that were being housed within Tokyo Jujutsu High, as we learn that this was the true objective of their invasion of Tokyo Jujutsu High. Hanami and Juzu served as simple distractions, while Mahito was able to break into the school and steal the cursed objects. After successfully escaping, Mahito regroups with the injured Hanami, as we learn that he was able to successfully steal 6 of Sukuna's fingers, as well as revealing that he was able to steal the death-pating wounds numbers 1 to 3. The aftermath of this invasion results in several casualties, and as the teachers are about to cancel the Goodwill event, Todo refuses to allow this to happen, as the students vote to conclude the event with a baseball game. After this match, the Kyoto and Tokyo students are able to understand each other better, as the Goodwill event wraps up in chapter 54 with the Tokyo school being declared the victor. I believe that during this arc, several of the Tokyo students were matched up excellently against some of the Kyoto students. Through these one-to-one battles that occur between the students, we get to learn a lot about the individual characters, as well as any bonds that exist between the characters. We got a fascinating matchup between the 2 cursed corpses Panda and Mkhimaru, where we got an insight into each of their abilities. We get to learn a bit of history about these 2 second-year students. We learn that Mkhimaru is being controlled by the Jujutsu sorcerer Kokichi Muta. After the conclusion of that intense battle, Panda reveals to Mkhimaru that similar to him, he did not fit in with his peers. However, despite being a cursed corpse, Panda has never felt jealous of other humans. Because Panda isn't human, through his character we get a fascinating insight into the human condition. compassion. He states that he finds the insecurities of humans to be gross, but despite this, he is still able to appreciate the qualities that humans possess that he does not. He tells Mkhimaru that he is aware that he has suffered, but it doesn't make it right for him to have resentment or to feel jealous of others. Panda reminds him that they have far more similarities than differences, and that they aren't enemies. In the end, their battle concludes with Panda stating that he will help Mkhimaru fulfill any wishes that he may have. After Panda speaks to him and recalling all of the comments made by his classmates, Kokichi thinks about his wish to be free and to walk among his peers. He then asks Panda if he would still want to help him, even after seeing his decrepit body, but Panda states that he doesn't care about the appearances of others. The battle between the two cursed corpses results in a mutual understanding forming between the two of them, as we see the start of what appears to be a friendship that is formed between the two characters. Through the kindness and indifference of Panda, Mkhimaru is able to see that they have similarities, instead of focusing entirely on their differences, and on what others have and what he lacks. The next significant key battle that occurs during this arc is the fight between the twin sisters of the Zenin family. Maki is Mai's older sister, and during this battle we learn that Mai relies heavily upon her revolver. After Maki assumes that Mai has fired all 6 of her bullets that were within the revolver, she charges forward to bring an end to the battle, but it is here that Mai reveals that she has a cursed technique called construction. Her ability allows her to create one more bullet, but at the expense of all of her cursed energy. With a surprise bullet being fired out of nowhere towards Maki's direction, Mai believes to have won the battle, but unfortunately for her, Maki is able to catch the bullet with her bare hand. Mai fails at her attempt to defeat her sister, as Maki places her sword against her, signifying that she has won the battle and has eliminated her sister from the Goodwill event. During chapter 42, we learn a bit of history about these two characters, as Mai thinks about her relationship with Maki. We get some glimpses throughout this fight, but at the end we learn that Mai had desired to remain at home, despite the fact that she was being constantly harassed and discriminated by the Zenin family. Her older sister decided to be free from this torment, so she had left the Zenin family, leaving Mai behind. The hatred that Mai has for Maki formed after Maki had broken her promise. Maki had promised to never leave her sister's side, but despite this, she had left her behind, and it is for this reason that Mai considers her to be a liar. The complex bond between these two sisters is introduced to us here, and during the subsequent arcs we learn a lot more about Maki and Mai, and we get to appreciate the unique path that both of these characters are on, and how over time their pursuit for becoming stronger Jujutsu sorcerers impacts and affects their relationship. The battle between these Zenin sisters was definitely a highlight for me, and an aspect of this story arc that I really did enjoy. The next battle that I want to talk about is the battle that takes place between Megumi and Noritoshi. Earlier on I spoke about the differing ideologies of these two characters. Through this battle we are introduced to the big 3 sorcerer families, and we learn about the existence of inherited curse techniques, Megumi having formerly belonged to the Zenin family, while Noritoshi belongs to the Kamo family, desiring to be its next leader. This battle is not only underpinned by the differing beliefs of these two characters, it is also a visual spectacle to behold, and this is credited to the variety of curse techniques that are utilized within this encounter, and I truly believe that the anime does so much justice to this fight, with one of my favorite moments of this fight being Megumi utilizing his newly acquired Shikigami Max Elephant to unleash a rush of water towards Noritoshi's location. Noritoshi and Megumi have complete different views on how to be a sorcerer, with Noritoshi willing to do anything as long as it benefits his family, while Megumi has no connection with the Zenin family and completely disagrees with Noritoshi's way of doing things. Their battle is eventually interrupted by the arrival of Hanami, and this is where something truly fascinating occurs, as the two students from the differing schools are made to put aside their differences and to work together. We see Megumi, Inumaki and Noritoshi fight against Hanami, and it eventually culminates in the teamwork of Yuji and Aoi Todo against the special grade curse. Now this perfectly allows us to segue into the relationship that has formed between Yuji and Aoi Todo. Their fight is initially a one-sided display of Todo's immense strength and power. This encounter between these two characters eventually transforms into something that I've not quite seen within any other shonen manga, as a unique bond begins to be formed between Todo and Yuji. After Todo realizes the incredible innate ability that the unrefined Yuji possesses, this bond forms after Todo realizes that Yuji has a similar taste in women to him, and then after engaging in several bouts of close quarters combat, Todo realizes that Yuji has intense levels of endurance, as he is able to resist Todo's attacks, using the momentum of Todo's attacks in order to fire back equally as explosive counterattacks. During their battle, Yuji uses his environment to his advantage. The first year is going up against a third year. He is outmatched, but Yuji is unwilling to give up, and he isn't afraid of his opponent despite the odds being overwhelmingly stacked against him. Yuji is willing to do anything and everything to hold back Todo. During this battle, Yuji proves himself to be worthy of Todo's mentorship, and this is especially after he is able to blindside Todo from above by landing a successful divergent fist. This proves that Yuji is able to think ahead in battle. Todo begins to help Yuji after questioning if he is satisfied at his current level, and if he is, then they won't be able to continue being best friends. When Todo asks Yuji if he is okay with being weak, Yuji fires back, refuting this notion. It is thanks to Yuji's passionate response which inspires Todo to assist him. He helps Yuji to realize that despite his divergent fist being a good technique, it would be ineffective against a special grade. This leads Yuji to understand that he must apply his cursed energy at the point of impact in order to maximize the damage dealt by a single blow. It is here that Todo further elaborates and teaches Yuji that if he is to do this, then he must allow his cursed energy to flow freely throughout the entirety of his body. After heeding Todo's advice, they once again take part in close quarters combat, as Todo is determined to guide Yuji into becoming stronger. Their battle and eventual friendship culminates in them two working together to battle against Hanami, in what is easily one of my favorite battles to take place during this arc. Yuji and Todo creatively taking advantage of Todo's boogie woogie technique left me utterly jaw-dropped. I remember being at the edge of my seat when I had read these manga chapters, and when I had seen this high-paced, exciting battle adapted into the anime, showcasing just how creative Gege Akutami can get with his cursed techniques, and how he can utilize the variation of these techniques that exist in order to come up with fascinating and engaging encounters that ensure that you'll be invested in these fights until their outcome. The Kyoto Goodwill Event arc is the longest story arc that we have had up until this point, running for a total of 23 chapters, proving that Akutami is just as successful at creating long-form stories. Taking us up to chapter 54 of the manga, we are well into the story of Jujutsu Kaisen, and the next story arc deals with the aftermath of the events of the Kyoto Goodwill Event arc, as we learn about the consequences of the actions of Mahito's group, as the next arc involves the cursed tools that Mahito had stolen from Tokyo Jujutsu High. My next analysis video will be on the death painting arc, which is another short story arc, and it wraps up the events of the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen. So anime only fans, you're safe again for another video. But after my analysis of the death painting arc, we're going to be talking about manga exclusive storylines. So I look forward to seeing all of you in my future installments of my Jujutsu Kaisen arc analysis series. And to wrap this video off, I want to know all of your thoughts about the Kyoto Goodwill Event arc. Did you love the various different one-to-one battles that occurred between the Tokyo students and the Kyoto students? And what did you think about all of them working together in order to battle against the special grade curse? I would love to know all of your thoughts, so definitely leave a comment under this video and continue the discussion. But for now, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next one. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, then please consider supporting my channel on Patreon. I have multiple tiers with rewards including access to an exclusive Discord server, video scripts, as well as being the first to know about unreleased upcoming videos. Thank you for your time, and whatever you choose to contribute I will appreciate, and it will mean a lot to me.